Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the webinar tonight by Track Record Asia and facilitated by Online Traders Club Singapore. My name is Richard, and I'm one of the committee member of Online Traders Club Singapore, or OTCS in short. And I'll be with us here is V, the CIO of Track Record Asia, who will be sharing with us a very interesting topic. So before we go into that, just want to encourage you to join the Track Record Asia Telegram channel, which is something you can search for TR2MIN in Telegram, and then you'll be able to receive daily market insights from V and his trading team every day, so that it can guide you in keeping you posted of what's market doing and what's coming up. All right. And also, while you're at it, do join the OTCS Telegram channel, which is Online Traders Club. If you search for that in Telegram, you'll be able to see that channel and do join it. And then you'll be kept posted of other interesting financial workshops as well as webinar. All right. So if you don't have Telegram, please download the free app. All right. Okay, great. So before we begin, V, are you there with us?
Hi, yes, I am. Do you hear
Okay,
me?
wonderful. Yes, can hear you loud and clear. So
Okay,
V is going to come back in about 3 minutes time. Just give me 3 minutes to give a quick intro of what OTCS is about. Okay.
sure.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so OTCS stands for Online Traders Club Singapore, and we are a non-profit society formed in 2005. We are a community of traders and investors. Okay, and to me, OTCS is a place where we network, share, and learn, and we do it through a series of workshops, courses, and our library. For workshops and webinars, we aim to have about 10 to 12 a year, and it's free for our members to attend. And this is one of the more major events that we hold once a year in SGX Auditorium, which is very well attended by over 250 attendees. As for courses, we aim to have about 3 to 6 a year and on a whole variety of topics. And because we are a society, we try to approach trainers who are willing to give us a discount when we go and buy their or attend their courses as a society for our members. As for the library, we have over $6,000 worth of resources. And if you are interested to find out what they are, please go to our website, onlinetradersclub.org, to download a PDF of the list of resources that we have and also how to borrow them. All right, so again, OTCS to me is a place where we network, share, and learn, and we do it through a series of workshops, courses, and our library. Of course, the next question would be, how much is it to become a member? Now, for OTCS, the normal price for joining us as a member is 120 Sing dollars a year. But for a limited time only, we are having a discounted price of only $60 a year. And if you come for our in-person workshops, we will actually provide dinner. So if you add up all the dinners that you attend, that you have at our workshops, you will basically earn back your whole membership already. So it's a really, really good deal. To find out how to join us, please visit our website, onlinetradersclub.org. And to be kept posted of our upcoming workshops and webinars, please join our Telegram channel or subscribe to our mailing list at our website. Okay, so now OTCS is not just run by the committee. We are also assisted by a group of good friends who are also members of the club, and we call them the OTCS crew. And I would just like to give them a shout out and appreciate them for helping us out down through the years. Okay, and very importantly is our disclaimer that basically it means that if there's any profit or losses, it is for you to bear, and then the speaker and OTCS is not responsible for them. All right, so before you make any decisions, please consult a qualified advisor or consultant. And again, I just wanted to remind everyone to please join the Track Record Asia Telegram channel, where you will receive daily market insights from V and his trading team. Just go to Telegram download the free app if you don't have it already, and then search for track record or search for TR2MIN. I just also want to highlight that there will be a Q&A segment at the end of the session of the sharing by V, and so if you have any questions later on, please type them into the chat box that you see on your screen. If you don't see it on your screen, you can scroll down to see it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can't ask question there, so please join us inside the webinar room instead of YouTube if you have questions that you want to ask. Okay, so now we have come to the highlight of today's webinar. Our guest speaker, Mr. Pan V. Leong, or in short, we'd like to call him V, will be sharing with us how can you profit from the COVID-19 market crash. I think this year is a year that many traders or investors have been waiting for. The volatility kick in unprecedented levels. The prior market situations has usually been triggered by human elements, and this time round it is not. So it's causing a lot of fear, a lot of tremor in the financial markets, and many people don't know what to do. So today we are very privileged and very fortunate to be able to have with us V, who is the Chief Investment Officer as well as the co-founder of Track Record Asia, to share with us this very timely topic on how can you profit from the COVID-19 market crash. So V, can I pass over the stage to you?
Thanks, Richard. Thank you very much for the kind words. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Let me just share my screen. My name is V, as Richard introduced me. My track record is Trading Academy, which I started after I left finance for some years, and I thought there's a big difference in training programs available for retail traders. We were started with the primary purpose of giving training to institutional traders. So banks and hedge funds will ask me to come around to teach their professional traders, their traders, from various centers in the world, what's the best framework to use to look at risk and improve their risk taking. And in the process, I found that the retail landscape is very much different. Tend to be populated by not many people who do not really understand how the real world works. It's much like watching a news program. Sometimes, for example, 3 weeks ago, just 3 weeks ago, even the president of the United States says this is just a flu, right? Everybody says this is not a big deal, it's going to pass. And suddenly it all switched in just one day, right? 2 days later, and then the world is all shutting down. And it frightens a lot of people. And so it is important to look at the world through not what the newspapers tell you or through what the politicians tell you, because they all have their own agenda, right? And market moves cannot be explained by them. They only explain it after the fact. So I find it very important. I find it that I wanted to do this talk some time back with Richard, but of course it takes time to organize. In fact, 3 weeks ago, we wanted to do this quite urgently, because to me, it's imperative that everybody knows what is to come, right? And be prepared for it. And the reason is because, as Richard says, the market moves are unprecedented. Right now, many people, I get many calls from both our clients and also people from social media that, on that note, also not just our Telegram, sign up to our social media, because I post my thoughts there regularly now, because I find it's very important to be kept abreast of these developments, of the market developments, just to protect yourself and also your wealth, right? it is imperative to get this view out there because I think this is a paradigm shift. We have never seen anything like this before, and the message still remains not clear to many people what's going on, right? So I will go through this, and this for tonight, we'll talk about the key risk that faces the world now, and what I mean by the new game. A new game meaning previously all the crises that we faced, they were all variations of the same thing, and as Richard also pointed out correctly, they were all man-made crisis, right? It's either a war, it's either a terrorist bomb, it's a credit crisis. People lend too much. It's a housing crisis. It's a housing boom, right? A housing bubble. People got too greedy. Right now, it's very different. And then, but the world, the policymakers are approaching it as if it's the same crisis, right? So that's one of the risks that we face. And of course, then we'll talk about inflation, which is something that everybody has forgotten about. The older ones will know what inflation means. The younger one among us have no clue what inflation is. Only heard of deflation, and inflation is just a word that people talk about. And then how, which country in this world, who's going to save us from this? Who will step up? And more importantly, how to profit from this, and also how not to lose everything you have in the process of believing the old economic model works. Okay, so with that, currently, let's start with what the state of the world is. The state of the world is that we have two key risks. One is the obvious one, COVID-19 virus. For those who follow our social media, you'll know that from the very beginning, from the moment that Wuhan was shut down by China, this became a major risk in our risk framework, right? Maybe something that will change the landscape of everything that we know. Of course, for the longest time, everybody assumed it was a Chinese problem. It was just because it was mismanaged. It's because the Chinese policymakers are all not transparent. They are inept, right? And they are not doing the right things, and they just wanted to cover up. So that is a fallacy of thinking, and this is what has led us to this stage of the world, right? Because everybody saw what happened in China, and yet no one was prepared for it, because everybody thought, yeah, it's just because the Chinese government, they're a bunch of dodgy people. They don't know what they're doing. They try to cover up. And yet what we saw later on was a blow up in South Korea, a blow up in Iran, a blow up in Italy, and soon in US and many other countries in the UK as well. And what they did was exactly the same thing as what the Wuhan officials did, the city officials, right? They did exactly the same thing. They brushed it off as just the flu. If your guy is sick, doesn't make a difference. Let's just see what happens, right? And then, of course, the certainty of this virus is that it spreads, right? And then I'll go through with you why there's a certainty around it, and eventually it engulfs the whole world, right? That is the key risk, a non-man-made risk. Of course, there's conspiracy theories of where the virus came from, but it truly doesn't matter where it came from. It is here now, right? It is here now, and it is going to be with us for some time, and it's quite a long time to come, I believe. And the other risk, of course, is the human reaction towards it, the economic impact, how it's going to affect asset prices, how it's going to affect our economy, right? And how is it going to affect our jobs, affect the way that we live. These are the two key risks that we currently face. This cartoon here, of course, was, the wolf, the big bad wolf was just, in our view, there is no way. And how did I gain this insight that it was a big deal? Is because China closed down not just a city of 11 million people because of a virus, right? They closed down the whole country of more than 1 billion people during the peak time of celebration during Chinese New Year. It's like, imagine US canceled Christmas parties, right? Canceled Thanksgiving just because some guys ate some wild animals in a seafood market in Wuhan, and then all of a sudden the whole country shuts down. And for the longest time, everybody underestimates it. This is why I say it is important not to read what is said, but also think of what has led to that outcome. So knowing that China is probably one of the best governed places in this world. Of course, I'm not going to go to the debate as to whether democracy or the Chinese system is better, but they are governing their country the way that they have always governed it for the last 20 years, and they have surpassed many countries in prosperity, in development, and they know they have the experience of SARS, right? They are not novices in terms of approaching an infectious disease. And the reason why they shut it down like this was because there is human to human transmission. And for the longest time, the world was waiting for confirmation of human to human transmission. If there is no human to human transmission, why would a country of that magnitude shut the whole country down? It's not like the whole country was going to rush out to eat some wild animals, right? After knowing that it's dangerous. It's illogical, right? So that is one key thing. So the risk of COVID-19 is that it has a long incubation period. This gives it the opportunity for transmission, because the longer it is, the more hidden it is, right? Previous diseases had shorter, not very short, but shorter incubation period, or more symptoms that were very obvious, like Ebola. It's very dangerous, but it's very hard to spread because the guy who gets Ebola dies very quickly. And if you see a guy bleeding from his eyes, bleeding from his mouth, you're not going to be close to him, right? It's very obvious. But the person that has COVID-19 is among all of us, in every single country in this world right now. The reason why some countries insist that they don't have it is because they haven't tested. Right? For the longest time, Indonesia insists that it's because of hopes and prayers that they are safe from this disease. It is not likely, okay? And the long incubation period, as well as a highly infectious virus, right? It has an R naught of more than 2, sometimes 3, and this is an estimate. What this means is that for each person who is infected, he or she will ultimately infect 2 or more people. Right? Of course, the more will be those irresponsible people attending dinners, although they are sick, or going to churches, going to mosque, although they are sick, and all because of the complacency of thinking, I am different. Because I'm a good person, I am different, I will not be infected. And my friends are different because they are good people, they will not be infected. And we can all hang out together because we are all good people. And that is a fallacy that must be dismissed, right? And for the longest time, the world says, this is not a big deal because only less than 2% mortality rate. You know, more people died of flu in the US, in the world, than this disease. And this is only because at the stage, the COVID-19 was just starting, right? When we are looking at the flu, it's been a stable state for the longest time. We know how many people it kills. But COVID-19 has only been with us for a few months, and it has only now just spread to the rest of the world. We will not know what is the true mortality rate until it stabilizes, and we will not know how many lives it will claim until it stabilizes. The mortality rate is highly dependent on the state of the healthcare system, right? In Singapore, for now, there's still yet very, very low, no mortality. In many countries that have very good facilities, they're okay. But for example, across China, the mortality rate is not uniform. In Wuhan, it is very high, it approaches 5%. And of course, it's because the healthcare system was overwhelmed, right? So this is an imperative thing to understand. You must understand this, that if the world is overwhelmed by the number of patients, there is no way that the mortality rate will be kept low, because there's an aging population in certain countries. There are high obesity rates in certain countries. There are high smoking rates in certain countries. And there are not enough hospital beds in this world to account for the 5% that needs to be in ICU, the 15% that needs to be hospitalized. So everybody thinks it's because of the Chinese ineptitude that the health system in Wuhan was overwhelmed. It is not. It is not that they are inept. There's very few countries in this world that can build hospitals in a matter of days, right? And if this happened anywhere else, if this happens in India, this happens in Indonesia, the mortality rate will be something that cannot be imagined. Okay, and the spread is inevitable, right? The only defense against this virus right now is social distancing. There is nothing else that we know. Of course, every day you will see in the news, some guy has developed a vaccine. He's going to get it to market very soon. Some guy has developed a cure. Some treatment will be very good. The time it takes, experts who really know their stuff, the time it takes to get a vaccine to market is at least 6 months to a year. 6 months is something that is really, really stretching it. Imagine a typical vaccine is a watered down version of the virus, and you have to put it into your bloodstream and hope that your body generates the antibodies to make you resistant against the virus. What are the side effects of having the virus? That's what nobody knows yet, right? There are cases where there are recurrence of symptoms after people are discharged from hospitals. There are cases where there is organ damage after the fact. Okay, I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to tell you the facts as is known right now, right? Of course, now it becomes more obvious because countries are panicking right now. All these countries in this world had months, right, had weeks to prepare themselves such that their citizens don't run out to buy toilet paper, to buy food, to prepare themselves, but none of them did because they all dismissed it as just another flu. And I tell all of you here, and most of you will be most likely be in Singapore. That we have some overseas listeners, but most of you are in Singapore. There is still a sense of complacency in Singapore because the Singapore government appears to be the only one outside of China who knows how to control this. And yet, because they are so successful, it allowed the world into a false sense of security, because when it came to Singapore, the numbers were decreased, not decreased, the number of increase were very, very slow. So everybody thought, yes, it can be done. It can be done if you are Singapore. It can be done if you know what you're doing. It can be done if your citizens are law-abiding citizens who listens to the government, right? If you look at the US, the first thing that they buy besides toilet paper and food is guns. All these guys, what happened in Wuhan was when the hospitals were overwhelmed, many of the citizens were unfortunately quarantined at home, even if they had somebody sick with them, and they had to, their only recourse was to go on Weibo or YouTube and make their case and cry, right? All these Americans will not be on YouTube crying. They will be taking their guns. They will be out at the hospitals and demanding treatment. This is the nature of things, right? This is why it is extremely dangerous if the US government does not contain this correctly. Okay, the spread is inevitable, and we need to know what happens after that. Okay, the other risk that faces us is regardless of the misconceptions. First, the misconceptions about COVID-19 is that when the warm weather comes, we'll all be safe. If that is true, then in Malaysia will not be panicking right now. If that is true, Indonesia will not be panicking. If that is true, Philippines will not be panicking. There are countries in this world which are hot, and yet they are all panicking. The warm weather that will save us is just a theory that people compare it with other viruses that we have known before. It is not proven. It is irresponsible to propagate that message. It is foolish to believe that message. It is not proven that it will save us. It may go away, but half of the world will have cold weather when half of the world has warm weather. It is not going to be the thing that keep us safe, right? And case studies have shown that more than 90% of transmission occurs indoors. It is not like you're walking outdoor in the street or you're walking around and then you get it. It is indoors where it's close contact. And most indoor places in hot countries are air conditioned. There are very few places that in hot countries, except in countries where you're really poor, all the indoor places are really hot. And of course, it's true, the virus finds it difficult to survive in hot places. But none of us stay in hot places 24 hours, and none of us stay in hot places when we come in contact with other people. So that is a very irresponsible message for the media to propagate. And the hope that it will mutate to a milder strain, that a milder strain will dominate the population of the virus, is again something that we are hoping for, because we are comparing it to SARS. And this is something which is very odd. The authorities were comparing it to SARS, hoping that it mutates to a milder strain, and yet they say it's just like the flu. But if it's just like the flu, then it is always going to be with us. If it's going to mutate to a milder strain like the SARS, then it is not the flu. So you cannot, in the same breath, say choose the best of all worlds and then say, yes, this is the virus that we are facing right now. And what we are facing is something unprecedented. We don't know. And the reason why the markets are panicking, the authorities are all panicking, is because they finally come around to this fact that all these things doesn't yet have it has fact behind it, right? And the vaccine is around the corner. We read about it every day. It is not around the corner, right? I'm sure everybody in this world who is a responsible scientist, doctor, they're all trying their best to figure out how to solve this problem. But as of now, there is no reason to believe it is going to be here next week or the month after, right? So this map is a heat map of infection cases. The darker red it is, the more infections there are in the country. You still see some countries are white, right? Some countries are very pale. The reason is because it's either there's nobody there, or they have closed their borders, which is very unlikely, or they have not done any testing. And sad to say, the number one superpower in the world, the United States of America, was just that, right? For the longest time, they do not have tests. They had tests which are faulty, and now we are only seeing what's happening to the population in the US. And this week and next is extremely important, because the cases in US will be explosive in the increase, because for the longest time they were dismissing this virus, and they had primaries, the Democratic primaries, where all the Democratic candidates were going around shaking hands with everybody. They were hugging everybody. And this is much exactly like the Wuhan case, where there was this massive Chinese New Year dinner. Everybody was there having drinks and slapping each other on the back, giving each other hugs, celebrating the year that is about to come, right? The same things that Wuhan did wrongly is being done all over the world. And then we see daily there's news media, like this, some crowd turns up in defiance of the virus, and then they brave the whatever. And then you see videos of spring break college students in the US. They say, oh, we only live once, we're not going to let the virus stop us, we're just going to party anyway. This is the state of the world. It's a state where people assume for some reason they are insulated from the effects of the virus that nearly decimated a city in China. Okay. So the other thing that is the risk which most prominent now, which is actually what worries many market observers and even the everyday person, is the collapsing stock markets, is the dysfunctional financial markets, right? The economic consequences, even till this day, many governments tell you it is just going to be a slowdown. We can have a V-shaped recovery. All these are theories with no facts behind it, right? What we know for sure is that this is inevitable, is that governments who act proactively will have to impose social distancing, which is what China did for the rest of China, right, outside of the Hubei area, right? And what happens with social distancing is that you shut everything down and you stop all economic activity that is not done online, right? By that, you destroy a lot of production, you stop production, you stop consumption, right? There's governments who are responsible enough to act. Governments who decide to react, which is in the case of many countries, is that we don't need to do anything until we have enough cases to do something. But if you have one, soon you will have two. When you have two, soon you will have four. When you have four, soon you have 16, right? You don't know. Soon you have 8, 16. Every country in the world has this manner of increase. Only one that's escaped it so far is Singapore, right? And it is inevitable unless you close your borders, you say there's nobody within our borders who have it. Eventually you'll reach the threshold of cases where you panic and then you do social distancing, right? But the outcomes of both choices that government makes is that social distancing must be done. And with social distancing, what happens is there will be supply chain disruption, meaning people who produces don't produce, they are sitting at home, right? Manufacturing facilities stop, right? Many things that there's a whole supply chain, right? You need to produce raw material to give to the next guy, value added up the chain. The chain is all disrupted. The whole world is connected this way, right? A disruption of the Chinese supply will be felt very in a very significant way in the numbers we will see, right? You see soon. Many friends of mine, I'm sure for you guys, it's the same as well, who worked in certain factories. They couldn't find the raw materials that's required. They need to find alternative sources, and it's invariably more expensive. The other thing, besides supply chain disruption, meaning production stops, is demand destruction. A population that is scared, that is staying at home, is not going to be consuming, right? It's not going out there to watch a movie. It is not going out there to shop, right? It is not going out there creating all this consumption that drives the economy, right? You're always going to be at home, worried what happens next. And it becomes increasingly fearful for you when you know somebody you know gets infected. And it is unfortunate because somebody we know will get infected. We will know of someone who knows someone who gets infected, right? And that will, all this will lead to a confidence shock that is unprecedented. Again, as Richard said, this is not man-made. In the case of September 11, we could be reassured when the US go to war, they decide to bomb the Taliban, right? Although maybe they were not the real culprits, but you could just bomb somebody and we'll all feel better about it. Let's keep them preoccupied in their own country. They were safe now, right? But if for those of you who remember those days, it was very fearful then. For the longest time, you fear of some, but that was only you're only afraid of bombs in land, tourist sites that are significant, transport links, trains, planes, ships, right? This is not something like this. You don't know where it is. It's invisible. It's an invisible enemy. It's relentless, right? This confidence shock will last for some time. And all this will lead to the fact that we are now facing a new game, right? It is not any crisis that we have seen before and experienced before. It is a disruption of supply chain in an unprecedented manner, meaning disruption, less goods that we need, less raw materials that we need for other. Like for example, the production was halted for the longest time because of iPhone production is in China. Like right now, all the car factories in this world, in Europe, they are all closing down, right? This is supply chain disruption in a manner that we've never experienced before. Demand destruction, again, it is in a manner that we have not experienced before. Right? We are all changing our consumption patterns. You will see a boost in consumption in certain items, like the guys who are raking it in are the toilet paper manufacturers. For some strange reason, every movie that I watch about apocalypse, about infection, about pandemics has no storyline where people rush out to buy toilet paper. But yet somehow it happens all around the world. This is very confusing. I don't know why this happens. But demand destruction is real, right? There will be less consumption. There will be people losing jobs. That leads to the confidence shock. Fear of infection. When someone gets infected, the community gets afraid. You lock yourself down. You don't spend, right? When you lose your job, you're not going to go out and spend. Governments all think it's a good, we can ease the pain by giving free money. We'll send checks to every household. Yes, you send checks to every household, they're not going to buy stocks. They're not going to start a business. They're going to keep the money because they don't know when this ends. They're going to keep the money to buy food. They're going to keep the money in case they need medical treatment, right? This is the confidence shock that is unprecedented. All these three, to me, is not, we have never experienced it before in this world. We have wars, we know it ends. Eventually there's a victor, there's a consumption boom that comes after that, a rebuilding boom that comes after that. We don't know what comes after this, right? How long is this going to be with us? So now politicians are suddenly becoming more responsible, right? They're starting to say, yes, I advise you to listen to the Singapore ministers when they talk, because they are very refrained in expressing their views, but they are very close to the truth of what the world is to become. They recently said, this could last for 1 year. We have to be prepared, right? Many governments right now still say, if we shut it down, it'll be okay. How do you know it'll be okay? Like China, they shut it down, they're okay. Yes, China is probably the safest place outside of Singapore right now. But China is now afraid of visitors from other countries in the world. All you need is one guy who's infected. He comes into China, he infects 2 people. And then the 2 people goes around and infects 4 people. And then it's all over again. They have to shut it all down, right? The only way to do this, as far as I can see, is for the world to shut down simultaneously and hope that the virus dissipates. And then we don't have active carriers around anymore. But for that to happen, can you imagine all the world they need? United Nations, WHO, even WHO. It took WHO the longest time to say it's a pandemic when it, by definition, is broken every definition of pandemics. It took them the longest time to say it's pandemic. I'm not sure what is the agenda of all these policymakers. It's either complacency, idiocy, or something else, right? But it is not something that they are telling us all about, right? It cannot be all of them are simultaneously so stupid that they don't know that this is a pandemic. So it is the different game with many different consequences that we have to face. Yet all the policymakers, they are throwing the weapons that they have. They're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, because they assume it's the same thing. They have the same playbook. They think it's a credit crisis. They cut rates. They say we're going to spend money. We're going to do everything we can. Yes, that helps with maybe it helps a little bit with the confidence, but not really. You see, the way that they reacted is almost like panic, right? Fed cut emergency 50 basis points, and a week later, they cut 100 basis points emergency 2 days before their policy meeting. And the S&P did not even rally for more than a few minutes. It tried to go up, and then it absolutely collapsed. And almost every day we have S&P going up and down in 5%, and almost every day we have limit down, limit up, right? And this is because the markets are very unsure. And all the governments need to know about is to, yes, we're going to cut rates, we're going to buy bonds, we're going to quantitative ease, we're going to give you free money, we're going to spend. But that doesn't reassure us, right? It doesn't tell me if they spend as much time thinking about how to stop the virus, we will be better off. But they're all spending time, like for the longest time, Trump refuses. Even now, he spends his time tweeting, Donald Trump, he spends his time tweeting about whether you should buy stocks or not, right? He's like, he tweets after the biggest rally in Dow Jones in history. He tweets, this is a great thing. But it came after the biggest collapse in Dow Jones in history. He doesn't say that. He's like, all he wants to do is to change opinions, like try to mislead people into so that he can win his re-election campaign. Right now, his agenda is to continue saying this is the Chinese virus, so that people will start to blame China for it. Right? This is extremely worrying from the most powerful country on earth, that they want at this time, at this juncture of human history, they are looking to pin the blame on someone else. It truly doesn't matter where the virus came from. Could be a weapon, could be just random. It could be nature trying to take us all down because we are crushing the planet. Various theories are abound. There's many theories around. It truly doesn't matter. It's with us right now, and it's inevitable, right? That we have to control the virus, right? Yes, we want to stabilize the markets. We want to stop the panic, but you cannot stop the panic if every single day 2,000 people appear somewhere infected, right? Clusters appear everywhere. How are you going to be? Does it matter if interest rates are zero? Are you going to run out to borrow money to buy stocks because it's 20% cheaper? It's very unlikely. Of course, yes, right now I'm fielding many calls from friends, from clients, from social media. Is this the right time to buy? Really? Do you really think this is the right time to buy? And this is what worries me the most. 3 months ago, at the end of last year, everybody was calling for a recession. Every single person on social media says this is the end of the economic cycle. Right? Every expert says we should sell this stock because this is expensive. Suddenly, three months later, everybody has forgotten there is the possibility of recession. And recession is not just a possibility, it is a certainty. And I'll explain to you why in a bit, right? And the governments respond with fiscal policy. They are giving free money to people, right? Sure, yes, you must help the people who are less fortunate. Of course, you must give them tax relief. Of course, you must give them help. But there is no reason to give them free money for the sake of free money, right? All these policies, yes, it's not good. It sounds all great on paper, but it's not going to help us keep the virus at bay. What is panicking the markets right now is not that monetary conditions are tight. It's not that money is expensive. It's not that tax rates are high. It's not that government policies are bad. It's because people are dying in different places and people are infected in different places, and we don't know when it's going to come. But for us, most of us here in Singapore, we still live a life of, yes, because the government can keep me safe. Yeah, probably true in Singapore, but we cannot keep the world at bay, right? The only way is we shut it all down, but nobody wants to shut it all down. So what happens next? Can you spend and print your way to prosperity? It is very unlikely, right? There's nobody who can spend and print their way to prosperity. There is a price for doing this. The price of doing this in all economic textbooks from before is that there is a price of printing money. There is a price of spending money. It all comes due at some point in time. And at some point in time comes when inflation comes. But we had not had inflation before. And it has given this policymakers the false confidence to believe that inflation is dead, that there is no inflation, that we are free from the fear of inflation. Right? The only policymakers that probably still fear inflation is the German Bundesbank, because When hyperinflation happened in Germany, they went to war. And that's what happens in most countries. When there's hyperinflation, things happen. The poor people revolt. When you need 1 billion rupiahs to buy one loaf of bread and the price changes every day, that is hyperinflation. But that is not something that I'm saying. But I'm saying inflation is a bad thing, and that will unravel the whole economic cycle, right? And we were safe from inflation before because we lived in a deflationary world, right? The deflation pressures came from two things. One is the rise of the Chinese producer, the same Chinese producer that everybody makes fun of. They were willing to work for less. They were willing to work more hours. They do more, get paid less. And they have no health care. They have no benefits. This was time in the days where the Chinese producer was happy to have a job. And this is not the case anymore. Right? The standard of living in many cities in China is better than the standard of living in most of the cities in this world. The Chinese producer is not going to do things for cheap anymore. And even if they do, we cannot rely on one producer as this scenario has shown us, right? When our sole producers shut down, we don't have things. Hong Kong starts to panic that they don't have toilet paper because they think all their toilet paper comes from China. Then all the rest of the world just follow what Hong Kong did, although we laughed at them, right? I'm sure when it happened, we laughed at them. And then the urge to join that queue is unbearable, it seems. So, and tech innovation is what was helping us keep inflation at bay. Because of technology, because of logistics, because of outsourcing, we are able to produce in a very cheap country, transport it to our rich country. And what happened was we have low prices. There was deflation in most of the goods that we had, right? We could buy a computer for so much cheaper than you could buy 30 years ago, and it's so much more powerful. The phone that you have was more powerful than the computers that launched the rocket to the moon. We had tech innovation that allowed logistics, cut out all the middlemen, reduce the cost for all of us, right? We can hope for continued tech innovation to keep inflation at bay. But I think right now it's quite difficult to have the incremental deflationary pressure from increased productivity from tech, because everybody buys from Amazon right now. Everybody buys from Taobao. Everybody buys from RedMart, right? What else is there? It becomes increasingly less deflationary pressure, right? So eventually, this is my view for the eventual, but not yet now. But I just want to give you the roadmap of what is to come, right? Is that we will have inflation pressure coming in 3 to 6 months. You have seen in the numbers because there were shutdown of production facilities in various places. We have now companies want secondary suppliers. They want to diversify their supply chain. When you diversify your supply chain, you don't diversify it within China. That's not diversification. You diversify it to the second cheapest producer in the world. Maybe you go to Vietnam, maybe you go to Indonesia or Mexico, whichever place you go to, they are the second cheapest. By going to the second cheapest, after you've been buying from the cheapest, the cost goes up. Right? It's pure mathematics. There's no way around that, right? Because the cost goes up, prices goes up. It's either margins are squeezed or prices will rise, right? The strong deflationary pressures of the past could be over, right? The inflation that we have all not experienced is that the government tells us, publishes a inflation number that tells us that there's been no inflation in this world for the longest time. Again, that is a myth and that is a lie. We all experience inflation in education cost. We experience inflation in medical cost. We experience inflation in nutritious food, right? Good quality stuff that is limited in supply has inflation, right? Medical treatments has inflation. And the reason is because China cannot produce all these things for us, right? So soon we will have that spread across other areas of our lives. So who will step up? Who will be the engine of growth next? In the days after 2008, where we got nearly a V shape, right? Many busts of the past, we got a V shape because we were saved by some miraculous emergence of a growth engine. Sometimes it's the US, sometimes the recent past was China, right? And people who has not been to China do not understand how much of a growth engine they have been to this world, right? But who's going to step up in the world that is going to be upon us? Is China going to really be so focused on helping the rest of the world? I'm not so sure. Is China consumption going to be ramped up? It's quite unlikely. They are all majority. Previously, we had urbanization of Chinese population, right? But most of them now have factories, most of them have jobs, most of them are in cities. What's going to come next? They are middle class already. How do we get incremental boost in growth, right? That is difficult to come by. Can the US be counted on to implement the right policies to save us from the scenarios that are about to come? The US will be very focused on the presidential elections at the end of this year. Every policy that Trump will be implementing will be populist policies, will be policy that will help his re-election chances. He's concerned about his PR. He's not concerned about doing the right things. To save the world economy, sometimes you have to take some pain. Sometimes you have to do the right thing. The US government has not done the right thing and does not seem to be on the path of doing the right things. Without an engine of growth, the world economy is in for a tough time, right? The recession is not a possibility. I do not understand why some people have estimates where they say, oh, it will shave off 1% of growth. How do you how do you arrive at this? What kind of numbers are you looking at that it shaves 1% of growth? Just simplistically thinking, right? Let's just simplistically thinking. China was shut down for, let's just say, only 1 month. But it's not 1 month, it's almost 2 months. It takes some time for them to ramp it all up again, right? For it to grow, for China to stay the same, for GDP to stay the same, they have to consume as much and produce as much as last year. But if 2 months was taken out, 1 month was taken out, already it's in recession, right? For that missing production, for the missing consumption in the 1 and 2 months to be made up for, you have to do more in the months to come just to keep up with last year's GDP. And how are they going to do that when the rest of the world is shutting down? Who are they going to export to? Right? With all the tourism shut down in this world, we have one sector totally destroyed. Right? We have restaurants being destroyed in the meantime, right? Most places have receipts down 30 to 70%. How in this world are we going to generate enough consumption and production to make anything grow by comparison? Growth is comparison to last year, right? Last year was a very good year. Do you think this year you're going to make more money than last year? Do you think this year you're going to produce more than last year? Do you think you're going to consume more than last year? It's very unlikely. So recession is a certainty. And with bad policies, depression is a possibility, right? Because people ask me, oh, what's the definition of depression? There is no definition for you. I'm just saying it just to scare you into thinking that this is very serious, right? This is serious stuff that we're dealing with. So on the stock markets, I get fielded, right? That's why it's imperative for me to do this call, because I get all these questions almost every day now. And I was very adamant that I need to get this message out. I went on Money FM, I wrote to them the message 2 weeks ago, and then I did the interview last Friday. Actually, 3 weeks ago, and I did the interview last Friday. And I pretty much in a short time, I try to convey this message to people because it's really important, right? That the world is changing, and you have to be prepared. Everybody asks me the same question: when should I buy the stocks? It's 20% down, right? It's so cheap compared to last month. Yes, but there is a reason why it's so cheap, right? Look at this. This is a chart of previous bust, right? The light blue line is 2000, right? And the red line is the one that we remember the most. It is the credit crisis. All those, the smaller ones, they did not turn out to be a real bust. They were just repricing, just some fear, the Fed hikes or whatever. But the purple line is where we are right now. We are in very early stage of bust, right? Of course, it's very fast, it's very accelerated, but that's the nature of things these days, right? And it's because it affects not just one country, it affects many, many countries. It's so fearful that we are here. We are only 20% off the highs. 20% off the highs only get us to last year's levels, right? And we haven't even talked about, of course, by having more money in the systems, finite amount of shares, the price technically, theoretically goes up. But what happens is, in the process of printing all this money, people forget stock is priced as a stream of earnings from the future that is discounted to the present. Earnings are going to be crushed. Earnings are going lower. Costs are going up. Stock markets needs to be repriced, right? So keep this in mind. Don't think, yes, I'm going to start buying because it's come down a lot. Sure, I could be wrong. But if I'm not wrong, it could be even worse than here. It could be like 50% lower than here. And it will still be cheap as it is cheap to you now, right? It's only cheap to you relative to where your memory was of where the prices are. So how to profit from this? Okay, this is the crux of this whole thing, right? First, you have to understand the risk, which I have highlighted. I hope I have not scared you so badly that you cannot go to sleep tonight. I'm sorry if it's what I have done, but it's imperative for you to know. Many people come to me, they ask me if I should buy stocks now or I should sell volatility, right? They say volatility, VIX is very high at 60. A few days ago, it was at 60. I say it's very high relative to the past, right? But the past, we have never seen the world face this. There is no global crisis like this. There is no invisible enemy that we cannot defeat. There is no enemy that is relentless like this. So if you sell volatility at 60, I said it could go to 80 and 100 anytime, and it did. It went to 80 yesterday, right? Volatility is going to be high because policymakers keep trying to assure the market they implement a fiscal policy, and then markets go up. But then people realize, hey, wait a minute, that doesn't change things. It comes off, right? It's going to be like 5% up, 5% down. I'm going to cut rates 100 basis points. You're going to go 5% up. Immediately it comes down 10%, right? As volatility is high. Don't sell volatility because you don't know what's going on. If you need to buy stocks, you must know who will benefit from this. Buying a cheap stock that is in an industry that will disappear is futile, right? If you're going to buy the stock of a cinema chain, you're going to be crushed. Who is going to go to the cinema in this time? Right? For months, nobody was going to go to cinema, and you're going to get used to watching on Netflix. You're going to get used to watching streaming online. Once you get used to that, you'll come to think, there's no need for cinemas, right? And the movie studios, they decide, if I can stream online, it's so much cheaper. I can make a lot more money. I can reach more people. Why do I want to bother with this nonsense? And industries that will benefit, right? that is the industry that will lose. Industry that will benefit, something that all of us will have to do right now, like what we are doing right now is a video conference, a webinar, right? All work will be done online for the longest time. If you look at the stocks that provide the platform for this, they have been insulated from this sell down. What are the things that are missing in our lives right now? We need disinfectant. We need sanitizers. If you look at the stocks of Clorox, it's gone up through the roof in spite of the whole stock markets coming down. This is how you can invest if you want to invest, right? Think of the industries that will benefit. Think of the industries that will be gone. We go through cycles like this. Humans have to change their lifestyles from time to time, right? Eventually, there's nobody now that takes horses to come from one end to the other part of the island, right? You have to think this paradigm shift will change the way that we work, we play, and we live, right? Of course, I could be wrong about all these things, that the virus disappears in 2 months. But in the event that unlikely to be that case, you have to plan for the long haul. In terms of macro, look at the countries that will be crushed. There is no accident that Australian dollars just keep getting sold off. The main export is commodities. Who are going to use these commodities in time of reduced production? Who needs all these commodities? They have a big industry of tourism. Who is traveling, right? If you look at the tourist arrivals in Hong Kong for the month of February, it was 95% down year on year. 95% down. Can you imagine what happens to all the tourist dependent industries? So Australian dollar gets sold. You look at sterling, why is it getting sold? Right? You see, even euro is quite resilient, although it's all blowing up in Europe. But sterling, they don't seem to, the British government do not seem to have a plan. They think herd immunity is a plan. They want to have as many people as possible to be infected, and then hope that as people will have immunity against this virus. That only works if you know what happens if you get a virus. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what happens when the whole population get the virus, right? This is how what happens. What happens is the healthcare system gets overwhelmed. Nobody knows exactly what is the collateral damage, meaning what happens to you after you recover from the virus. There's been cases of organ damage. There's been cases of reoccurrence of symptoms. And this is a description for some of you who thinks, I think there are some positives to this, right? The positive to this is that younger people, especially children, are not so affected by this, probably because the theory is they have a stronger respiratory system, they are healthier, so they're able to withstand it more. And that is a real bright spot, right? This helps in that we don't have children falling sick and dying. 80%, you have to remember, yes, many governments tell you, yes, 80% get mild symptoms, and it's not a big deal. But yes, but that means 2 out of 10 people will suffer that respiratory sickness difficulties, where, as described by a patient, was that she feels like she was running a marathon while lying on bed, right? You just cannot breathe and you need a respirator, right? So with that, I hope I have not given you a very scary webinar, but an informative 1 hour where you will be prepared to face what is to come, right? What is to come is by being prepared, you will not be fearful. You will not. You will not rush out and buy toilet paper, right? Yeah, you need to be prepared for social distancing. Even if, like, I don't understand why people need the government to tell them to practice social distancing. If you look at the map previously that I showed you, the virus has gone into every country. I still have friends telling me, oh, the travel ban is stopping me from going to holiday. So why would you want to do that, right? Seriously, why would you want to do that? Just because you think there's no other time to go for holiday? No, you need to practice correct, do the right thing for yourself and your family and for your community. And that is the first point that I want to make. And the other one is to protect your wealth. You need to understand that this is unprecedented circumstances. You should not be complacent. Don't do highly leveraged strategies. Don't sell volatility. Of course, eventually you'll make a lot of money selling volatility. But I have a long career of trading. I've come across many more people who have sold volatility and been bankrupted. As is the case these days, you see many headlines of hedge funds closing down, people getting sacked because they took too much risk, because they have strategies that blew up. This happens a lot in cycles where correlations break down. Gold should go up, but it's coming down, right? The best trading advice I can give you, if you don't know what's going on, then don't trade, don't invest, right? The point of investing and trading is not to be involved all the time. It's to be only involved when you have an edge, right? If you feel that you have an edge, I will seriously tell you to reconsider, because I have many professional friends who have done this for the longest time and they were still surprised by the outcomes, right? We will, on that note, we'll move on to Q&A, and also to remind you to be safe and to be responsible for yourself and for your family, and also, thank you. And do follow us on social media if you found that I currently now write very regularly of my thoughts, because I think it is important to get the message to as many people as possible. With that, Richard, shall we go to Q&A?
Thank you, V, for a very, very insightful session. Now, I have to say that after listening to you, I can't feel bullish. Yeah, correct. And I think the last slide, although it didn't tell me exactly what to buy and sell, but it makes me think. Actually, I want to ask you, so what to short and what to long, but I don't think you're going to give me the answer. But you have pointed the direction to us, and that is to know what is to come. And like you said, this is an invisible enemy. There is nothing, you cannot negotiate with this enemy, you cannot bomb this enemy, and it's unknown, right? So it has to take its time to play out, and the complacency that we see is not helping. Right. One of the things that I observe is that although WHO has delayed in their confirming its pandemic, but when they confirm it, they escalate it to the highest level. But yet, at the policymakers level, they still cannot communicate it out for whatever reasons. Perhaps they don't want to cause panic, and but what WHO say is what is happening. Yeah. So, and who will benefit from this? Who will lose from this? I think those will, if we ask ourselves, look at the list of stocks and industries, I think from there we can get some ideas. Am I correct, Lee?
Yes. So I hope I did not disappoint everybody in not giving you a secret tip, right? The circumstances of the I think even within that, I have suggested a few things, but more importantly, it's not for me to give you a fish, but to teach you how to fish, right? This is a very dynamic situation. Of course, I say, bearish Aussie, but it's moved a lot. If you go right now to sell it, you'll probably get squeezed, right? I don't intend for it to be a one-off trade recommendation, and then you go do. For that, if you want, you can sign up to our daily write-ups where, I talk about my views. If you think that I'm one of those guys who are just saying this right now, you can go back to the trail of our post for the last 3-4 weeks. And you're quite aware, Richard, I told you that I needed to do this ASAP because the world is changing.
Yes.
And when I said rates was going to zero, the Fed has not cut yet. The US has not reacted. The world, this virus is only in Singapore and China and a few places in Asia, in Southeast Asia, right? And I know this to be true, not to be true. I know this is high probability outcome because I thought of the way to approach this is I'll just take it as a first question. The way to approach this is to look at policymakers' reaction regardless of what happens, and then knowing. So to put this into context, right? I have been working from home since a month and a half ago, probably even more. I've lost track of time because markets are so busy. I've told my team to not go to the office a month ago, right? And this is because I took this very seriously. And the reason is because I know it is inevitable, right? If you are doubtful of that, go to our social media. There is a post, there is an article that I wrote called "It is Inevitable." And I pointed to this, and it's very cool because we have a picture of Thanos and his stones. And it is inevitable because it is a virus we are dealing with. It's not going to change its mind. It doesn't go to sleep. It doesn't listen to Trump. It doesn't answer to threats. It doesn't care about easy money. It doesn't care about fiscal policies.
Right. Yes. V, let me just give a quick shout out to everyone who is attending. We have 100 in the webinar room and about 30 over in YouTube Live. People who are watching us from YouTube, if you have questions, please come into the webinar room to type the questions out. And for those of you who are the 100 over of you inside the webinar room, if you have a question, please scroll down if you need to look at the chat box, and then you can type your questions, your most pressing questions to V. V has been in the financial markets and seen all the different crashes in the last 20 years to 30 years. So if there's someone that you can ask, I think tonight is the time that you can get your answers from V directly. Okay, so please go into the webinar room, scroll down if you need, and type your questions in the chat box. All right, so V, maybe you can look at the chat box and see whether there's any questions there that you would like to answer. One of the curious questions that I have about some from our friends are typing is about oil.
Okay.
Yeah. So amidst all this virus thing, and then there seems to be another secondary theme that is going on, which is oil.
Sorry?
There seems to be a secondary theme that is going on in the world right now, which is the price war on oil.
Okay.
Do you have any views on that, or that one doesn't matter? Right now, this virus thing is so overwhelming that the oil thing doesn't matter.
I think it matters. It matters to oil. It matters to countries who export oil. So for those who are not aware, that Saudi and Russia started a price war on oil. There's this, just for some context, OPEC plus, which is OPEC countries plus Russia. OPEC wanted production cuts to put oil prices up. Russia says no interest. They want to have oil prices down because they want to crush the shale oil companies in the US. So they say we are not going to cut production. Saudi thought about it one day and then it says, okay, I'm going to give 20-30% discount on oil to all customers, and we're going to pump as much as we can, because if you're going to have we cannot have a production control. I'm going to have production free flow, right? I'm going to crush everybody because I'm the cheapest producer. I have more oil than anybody else. And as a result, oil has been crushed, right? So it's a double whammy for oil because there's no travel anymore. Airplanes are all grounded, right? Cars are all grounded in certain countries. They don't drive around. You don't go around anymore. So oil demand has just totally disappeared for 2 months. And it's a double whammy, right? Supply shock, meaning lots of oil in the system, not enough demand. So it's going to be very bad for oil, but it's good for the countries that import oil, but it's bad for the countries that export oil, right? For country,
Ah,
yeah. So
mm,
if for example you look at Norwegian kroner, it's weakened by a lot because they are oil exporting country. Um, yeah,
I
I think
see.
it's important, but it's not so much on the radar of most people anyway.
Right. And at the same time, there's also a bit of so-called rumors on the ground that bird flu is coming on stream in China. Did you read anything about that?
Ah, yes, but I mean, how do we know, right? uh,
So there's a wow, two disease going on right now.
yeah.
And gold prices, normally when there is a crisis, gold prices usually go up, right? It's normally inverse relationship with the market. But right now we're not seeing that. We're seeing gold prices drop. So what do you think is the what's going on here?
Okay, so one thing that it's good for everybody to learn is that in times of uncertainties, especially wild movements, um, the first thing that investors do, sophisticated investors, they run to the sidelines, right? They get margin calls, they need to liquidate their positions, and that's what happened in gold. You saw that at first it went up as stock markets went down because it's a safe haven, and they bought gold, and once enough people has bought gold, there's no marginal buyer of gold anymore. Many people were hedging their stock positions. They did not want to cut. They decide to buy gold to hedge. They think, okay, if stocks go down 30%, gold should go to infinity. It's the gold bucks theory, right? Like they always think, gold is going to go up. But eventually, everybody's long as a hedge against the worst scenario, stocks collapse, every other uh, uh, volatility scenarios. And when you face with a margin call, you got to reduce your position because of volatility going up. Many funds that are invested, they had to reduce their position because they have risk limits adjusted according to volatility. So yeah, all this happened, and yeah, so we kind of was in that situation. And on this note, there is a question that says, I talk about inflation, then would this commodities benefit um, in the long run? I think this question is a very difficult one to answer. Everybody thinks, gold is an asset to buy when there's inflation, but the times that gold did really well were in the last 10 years were times where there's no inflation. So this is a myth, right? Of course, in times of inflation, it's good to have hard assets, but uh, please don't rush out right now because what I say about inflation is further down the line. It is not right now. Right now, the theme is not about inflation. There will come a time when the theme is about inflation, but it is not right now. Right now is about the fear of the virus, the economic circumstances. You will soon have economic numbers that are shocking, like for example the um, Chinese production numbers, Chinese purchasing managers sentiment, right? So you have all these things coming first, right? So many people like to jump ahead of themselves. They find a third derivative trade, and then they get crushed in the meantime, right? So don't rush out to do. And commodities, there's some other ones. If you're talking about gold, that's the reason. But if you're talking about copper, you're talking about all the industrial metals, global production is shut down, right? All those industrial metals are gonna have a tough time. Richard, if you can help me,
Yeah,
you can.
yeah.
There's so many questions, so maybe you can pick and choose for me too.
Okay, I pick
Uh,
and choose. Okay, Ken. So, some one of the attendee was asking, how much more downside do you see to the market, like Dow Jones, for example? If based on TA, can we even use TA on such
Sorry, the question is how
situation?
much more can it slide?
Yeah, that's right.
I think, well, this is my view. It's not scientific. It's just my view. I think we are just only to levels where of last year, we're just taking out the projection of growth. We have not put in projections of much reduced earnings, change of life, the way that we live, the way that we work, consumption patterns. I think it gets worse. And markets, they don't go to fair value and stop there, right? This is what everybody thinks, right? It's fair value. It doesn't. It goes beyond fair value, right?
Right. Okay, and Ben was asking, given that the Fed has already cut rate to zero, what other tools do they have that can keep the US economy alive?
That's a very good question. There's no answer to that. There's really no answer to that. I think economic recessions are a fact of life that some people have forgotten because of financial engineering, because of emergence of China to basically 1 billion consumers coming online, right? 1 billion producers coming online. So, yeah, I don't see how we can avoid a recession. I think what the Fed and the government should do is concentrate on stopping the panic, allow a repricing of asset prices. You shouldn't stop what is. Well, if you have as a whole, you have a country, you have a stock market that makes X amount of money, that's earnings, and then you have a price earnings PE ratio, right? Let's just say earnings are the same. Right now, you take off the leverage because volatility is very high. Nobody wants to borrow, and you're losing money, right? A lot of the pricing in the market was because there's a lot of leverage in the system, right? There's some leverage in the system, so you can borrow cheap and then go speculate. Right now, you're not going to borrow to speculate, right? Who's going to do that when you lose your job? So that by itself will take off the price earning ratios will come down, right? And then the assumption that earnings remain the same is a wild assumption, right? Why should it remain the same when half the world is at some point shut down? Right? It should come off, right? So the both leverage and earnings come off, your price earnings has to change, so the price has to change, right? So the price of the stock market to me is going to change by a lot.
Wow, when you say going to change, it's change downwards, right?
Yeah, I don't see earnings going up, right? There are some companies are going to make a lot of earnings, but I don't think it's the majority of companies.
Right. And then another question from ST, he's asking, should we be liquidating our portfolio now, or is it too late?
I'm not allowed to answer questions like this, but you don't need my reassurance, right? I've given you all the ways to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the hint is very strong there already, ST. Okay, for asking that question. And CY is asking, what could possibly be the sign of market rebounding? I mean, now that the market has slid so much, right, and it's probably going to slide some more. So if we already missed the slide, maybe we want to catch the next wave up. So what would be the things that we can look out for to see the first sign of hope?
So typically if you read my daily post, bear markets start because everybody wants to buy. They don't start because everybody wants to sell, right? That's why you get repeated sellers all the way down. They buy, they sell, they buy, they sell, they sell. The time to buy, as Warren Buffett say, is when there's so much fear that nobody wants to buy anymore. So the best indicator I found is that when you suggest to your friend to buy, nobody agrees with you. That's the best time to buy.
Wow.
Right now, I'm sure you go out, you say buy. Everybody tells you yes, we should buy, right? We should wait for a chance to buy, right? Yeah.
Oh, so it's not the fear is not big enough yet.
I don't think it is.
Right. And another question from Michelle. She's asking, which market or what markets do you think will recover the fastest? What sector or what market, which country?
Well, I think China is going to be very strong. China is doing all the right things. They are providing medical aid. They're providing expertise. They're helping the world. They're taking a leadership role. China will be the next superpower of the world. They have an internally strong economy. They have enough consumers. They are self-sufficient, and oil prices coming off gives them such a bumper time to buy cheap oil and store, right? Yeah, I think look for countries that are self-sufficient. They can endure the time that is to come, and a robust system where people can. Well, you want a place where they can adapt to the new world that we are living in. Industries that will prosper are those that do not need supply. They don't have to deliver things or what, right? I mean, deliver is one thing, but they don't have to have the ones that will suffer. They need physical. Yes, they need a lot of people at the same place at the same time. Those are going to suffer if things doesn't change, right? Cruise companies, who's going to take a cruise now? I mean, would you? I wouldn't. Unless there's a total cure, right? Why would you ever go on a cruise?
Correct.
But
I think
strangely enough, still a few weeks ago, still has people going on cruise, right? That's how complacent people are.
yes, correct. I think the tourism is gonna be one of the hardest hit, like you already have mentioned, right? Theme parks, cinema chains, restaurant, anything that's do with this tourism, entertainment, where people need to be there and then people won't be there, and that's where they're gonna get hurt. And for the confidence to come back, it takes a long time.
Agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Ben have a question saying that asking that should we be more concerned now with deflation rather than inflation?
I don't think that is a theme for now. I mean, even whatever it is, the primary theme right now is fear. Primary theme right now is deleveraging. I think one of the things right now that people like to explain a lot is they try to figure out the moves, right? There are many moves that don't make sense, right? Like, why is yen weak? They don't make sense, right? You don't. So a primary rule of trading, if you cannot make sense of it, then don't go against it, right? Just don't go against it. I have so many conversations with people losing money trying to go against the moves these days. I kept buying gold on the way down because gold is a safe haven. I mean, so the point is not to be right. The point is to be rich. If you're going to buy and stop out, eventually one time you'll be right. But by the time you get there, you have so little money left, right? Don't try to make sense of the world in general terms like this, right? I don't know, is it deflationary? Or of course, I don't know, because there are certainly deflationary aspects, but the fact that the central banks and the governments are flooding the markets with money, it's very difficult for it to be deflationary.
Right. Okay. And Ben have a series of questions, but it's all coming on one topic, which is how would these? What are your thoughts about the agricultural market?
I have no thoughts about the agriculture market. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm not an expert.
No problem. And attendee L was asking, what are your thoughts on the US dollar moving forward? Is it going to strengthen, weaken, or what's going to happen? Roller
I
coaster?
think it's a roller coaster. I think in times of uncertainty, US dollars starts to become very strong. In fact, we wrote about it today in our daily, where we talk about the dollar smile, right? And we are at one end of the dollar smile. I think you can write to one of our social media and get a copy of yesterday's daily. You probably get it from our Telegram or whatever, right? You can see the chart of the dollar smile. Dollar weakens when it goes away from that extreme risk aversion. But for now, we are in a very scary mode. I think dollar does well.
Right. And I think at this juncture, the V have mentioned about the daily update that Track Record have sent out in the Telegram. I'd just like to show everyone where to find it. So again, please go to Telegram app and then search for Track Record. You'll see on your screen Track Record, or search for TR2MIN, which is Track Record 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute summary that Track Record publishes every day, and it's very comprehensive. So in the channel, once a day, you will see a message that looks like this. So what V has talked about, right? And then when you get a message like this, there's a quick summary here that you can get a big picture of V's and his team's thoughts. And then if you click on the link below each message, it'll bring you to the full expanded version, which I've already done so here. So this is his thoughts, his and his team's thoughts today on the 19th of March, right? So where he will summarize what happened in the FX market on the previous day, stock market, commodities, forex, and then here is where he talked about the dollar smile that he talked about a little earlier. Okay, so if you want to read about this, make sure you join the Telegram group, a Telegram channel, Track Record, search for Track Record or search for TR2MIN. Okay, and then you'll receive these insights for free, and you can see that it's very comprehensive, right? You keep scrolling down, then he talks about the ECB. And he also talk about, he don't just tell you what happened, he tell you what is the impact. So every segment of his writing, there is an impact on the message that he wrote earlier, right? As you can see again, what Trump have said, and what's the impact, and the death surge in Italy and France, and what's the impact, and also what to look ahead for the day, what are the interesting and important events that you should pay attention to. He also shared about the sentiment of the various markets in terms of the FX in different time frames, short-term, mid-term, long-term, color-coded, so it's very clear in this table. Stock indices as well. And usually he will end off his writing with a trading tip. And today, resistance is futile, which means that don't stand in front of this freight train that is bulldozing its way through. You're not going to win. Yeah. So this is a very, very it takes a lot of effort. I can see that it takes a tremendous amount of effort for him and his team to write this every day. So if you want to receive this for free, make sure you go to join the Track Record Asia, Track Record Telegram group. Wow, just now from 132 jump to 162 already. V, you have another 30 fans. I hope more of y'all will join. And I think it's very rare that someone of his experience is sharing his insights so freely. And like what V has said, 3 weeks ago, he approached me and said, I've told him that, hey, we should do a webinar together. And he said, yeah, sure. And then when 3 weeks ago, when he approached me, I said, yeah, let's do it, And I didn't know that it's a message of such urgency. If I had knew, I would say, let's do the webinar much sooner than now, right? Yeah, it's not too late. It's still good, because this invisible enemy that the world is fighting with is not going to go away anytime soon. So do take heed of what V have shared, what is to come, which means in his view, based on what I can interpret, is that recession is inevitable. And then who will lose? What are the companies that will lose in this battle? So those are the companies that you can look out for ideas on what you can do to those companies. And then who will win? From what I'm hearing from V is probably companies that don't need a lot of physical people. Technology company comes to mind. Yeah, so think of these 3 questions that he have posted in how to profit from this market, and I think we can get some ideas on how we can do that. Right, V?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just do a last check on the questions.
Yes. Let me take some of these questions that I read while you're talking about, right? So I was asked about double-digit scenario inflation. I hope you don't. It's from JY. Yes, JY. Yes. He says, in my worst-case scenario, the inflation he thinks I'm talking about goes to double-digit. I don't have a view on whether it's high inflation or hyperinflation or just inflation, right? I think it's too early to tell When I have a better, clearer picture, I would say, but I know that inflation is a risk, right? It's just a risk, but it's a real risk. Unless policymakers continue on the wrong path, there will be inflation, right? Unless, of course, there is some tech revolution that increases our productivity by a lot. So don't go away thinking, V says doomsday scenario, hyperinflation. No, what is really that is just to provide with you for you what is possible in the future, right? But what is certain right now is what I said at the beginning, which is that all these things will come into play, and what are the risk is that all these policies will need to be paid for at some point in the future, and it will be through the price of inflation. Okay, another question. Another question. It's not a question, but from Andrew Harris. He says, if I ever get tired of trading, I should make horror movies because I scared the crap out of him. That's not my intention, but to be honest, if you ask the people who know me, I have been since Wuhan shut down. I've been very uneasy about the world. I have been trying to warn my friends about it, and I've seriously I've locked myself down because social distancing. I only go out for very critical meetings because if it's not because I'm scared, right? I mean at that time I knew there were very little chance of infection in Singapore at the time, but I wanted to demonstrate to the world or the people around me that I'm very serious about what I say. So it's very hard for me to be serious about what I say if I'm doing it in a crowded bar, right? It's like, guys, you should start practicing social distancing, but we're all out hanging out in a group dinner and all. So I do apologize if I scared all of you to such an extent, but I think that's because the message is out there is only very, very misleading messages or crazy conspiracy theories, right? I want to give a balance of given the facts as I know it, given my experience of looking at numbers, and I was very certain, I was very certain of what is going to happen with the numbers because we are dealing with mathematics or biology, right? There is not something that can be changed. The virus cannot be changed. The numbers do not lie, right? If you look at all the numbers, all the explosions in infection cases in this world, they all follow the same pattern, right? And
That's right.
there's nothing we can do about it, right? There's like you want to be angry about it. There's nothing to be angry about. It is a virus, right? It's just doing what it's supposed to do, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, the invisible
Yeah.
enemy.
Yes.
Yes, correct. And yeah, go ahead.
Is there any questions that?
No. I think all the questions are answered. All the important questions are answered. And just again, if you want to this message is to the audience. If you want to tap or pick V's brain on how he viewed the economy as he see the day-to-day development of what's going on in the markets, as well as the macro views of the many things, please remember to join the Telegram group. And please do also help us out. At the end of this webinar, you will, for those of you who are in the webinar room, the 100 over of you, please, you will be automatically directed to a online survey, and it will really help us out to for you to please fill it up, to complete it, so that we know how we do, where are the areas that you would like to hear more of, and where are the areas that we can improve. So please do give us a few minutes. I think V have put in a lot of effort to prepare this webinar for us. So please feedback to us how is the webinar, and how are the content, what are the other content you would like to see, so that we can improve. Okay, so before you go off for the night, at the end of the webinar, you'll be automatically directed to an online survey. So please complete it. That would really, really help us. Okay, so V, any last things that you'd like to say?
No, thank you for listening to me for an hour, more than an hour on a Thursday night. I hope it was helpful for all of you. And yeah, sorry.
Yes. No, nothing.
Okay. So that just thanks for the time, and hopefully it helped, and hopefully it will be reflected in your trading as well as the way that you live. Be safe because it's imperative. I actually considered, is it better because it's almost inevitable that many people will be infected. Is it better to be infected early in the cycle so that you get into the hospital system while it's not overloaded, right? Right. Right. I
Provided
thought
you
of
survive.
yes, of course, right? But they don't know enough about the virus right now to treat it, right? So it's better to have it towards the end of the cycle. The best is not to have it at all. But if you look at the policymakers now, right, they now come to the fact that it's almost inevitable that majority of the people in this world will be affected somehow. But of course, 80% very mild. Some don't even know. That's why some places you have high mortality rates because many of the infected are not detected. That's one reason. There's also because their healthcare system is poor. So there's many two sides to the same story. You consider all sides to the story, and to this will this will be very interesting times. Fortunes will be lost. Fortunes can be made, but I'll try my best to help you guys navigate, right? But yeah, you have to do the part of getting getting the message as I put it out, right? I'm trying to put out messages on our Twitter, our social media. So
Yeah.
I know I didn't get round to many questions, but if you have any, we have Ask Us Thursday or something on our social media. Feel free to follow our Instagram and our Facebook and post your messages there. Thank you.
Yep,
Thanks, Richard. Thanks for
absolutely.
organizing. Thanks
No
very much.
problem. Yep. Thank you
Yeah.
everyone for attending, and please help us out by completing the online survey, which you'll be automatically redirected to for those of you who are in the room. The US market has just opened and it dropped, so go check it out and see. Ask yourself those few questions: who will win, who will lose, and then see whether there's any ideas, the trade ideas that you can get from there. All right. And with that, thank you very much. Have a good night. Thanks, V, for your
Thank
insights as
you.
always.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cheers.
thanks for putting in all the time to write it as well. Good night.
Yeah. All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.